Ken, the openly gay and LGBT founder of MinnowTank. I am first generation college, I speak fluent Mandarin, and I previously worked as a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch. Now, on Ken on Investing, I share the knowledge and expertise I learned at a top Fortune 50 financial firm to explain in simple terms investing, money, and economics. A quick disclosure before we get started. Content provided on any MinnowTank affiliated channel is neither investment advice nor a solicitation of securities. It is simply education and entertainment created to help everyone have a better understanding of investments, money, and economics. One of the coolest things about all content presented on the MinnowTank network is that it is live. That means that anyone watching can ask any question you've ever had about investing, economics, or money. What we would love is if you would participate in our show. And how can you ask your questions? There are 3 ways to do so. First, we stream live to Facebook and YouTube simultaneously. So feel free on Facebook Live to ask your questions in the comment section. Or if you're tuning in on YouTube, please feel free to ask your questions in the live comment feed. Or if you're a fan of Twitter, please feel free to ask any questions by tweeting to us at #MinnowTank. Please don't forget to check out all the other awesome content on the MinnowTank network by visiting minnowtank.com and by subscribing to the MinnowTank YouTube channel. MinnowTank is a platform to connect early-stage tech startups and investors through a live stream pitch. All right, everybody, enjoy the show. Good morning, everyone. All right, now it seems that our audio is working. My name is Ken. I am the openly gay LGBT founder of MinnowTank. We had our very first technical issue, but our very first episode of Ken on Investing. So we're going to go ahead and start over. Thank you for everyone who is stayed tuned in. Thank you very much, Racer360 on YouTube, for helping us understand that there were some audio issues. We're still live on Facebook and YouTube right now. So let's go ahead and start over the conversation, and thank you very much for tuning in. So as you saw just now, I am Ken, the founder of MinnowTank, and today's episode of Ken on Investing is called Why Do We Invest? I was inspired to ask this question to my friends, my family, and the MinnowTank community after volunteering at a super high-tech high school where I live here in Chicago called Chi Tech. While I was at Chi Tech, they asked me to share some experience that I had learned in my travels around the world. For you see, I have been to 36 countries, I speak fluent Mandarin, and I worked for one of the largest financial firms in the USA, the number 24 on the Fortune 50 list, Merrill Lynch, now owned by Bank of America. And I was paid a whole lot of money to learn everything about securities, investments, and how money really works. But as I worked there, and as I was speaking to these kids at Chi Tech, I realized that so much of my community does not have someone they can ask the question, what is a stock really? Or a question like, is buying a house still a good investment? Or even today's conversation, why do we invest? So I want to personally welcome you to Ken on Investing, powered by MinnowTank. Every weekday, I come on live to share my knowledge on a single subject filled with complicated financial jargon and try to break it down into something that everyone can understand. So without any further ado, let's get started on our first episode of Ken on Investing, and with the subject, why do we invest? As a quick reminder, Ken on Investing and all MinnowTank programs are always live. You may be saying to yourself, wow, everything being live on your platform, that sure sounds like it's a ton of work. You would be extremely correct. As you just saw, we went live for probably 5 or 10 minutes and the audio didn't work. Factual problems. It is a ton of work, but what makes it all worth it is that we have a community that joins in with us. So please don't forget that you can comment on the Facebook Live feed, join the live chat on YouTube Live, as well as tweet in questions about today's subject by tweeting to #MinnowTank. And I will be more than happy to answer each one of your questions at the end of today's show. Now, back to our original question and the question around February of 2018, why do we invest? And the simple answer that we were going to dig into very heavily today is because money is always depreciating in value. This is a confusing concept because you do not see your dollars in your pocket getting smaller. And $1,000 this year is technically equal to $1,000 next year. But do me a favor and join me in this thought experiment and let me prove to you that your money is always depreciating. Think of a shiny new red Ford Mustang that you just purchased today. Congratulations. New car smell, not a fleck of dirt anywhere to be seen, but as you know as well as I do, that once you drive it off that lot at the car dealership's parking lot, it is instantly less valuable. Cash behaves the same way, and it is always depreciating. As more is printed, and as the economy grows, inflation is always an underlying factor. Now, give me just one moment because I'm going to talk about inflation in a second. As you hear terms that you don't fully understand, it is my job to explain those to you. So please underline them, send it in. I have two computers in front of me, so if you want to send it on Facebook, you want to tweet it into #Minotank, or you want to make a comment on our YouTube live, please do, and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions live for you. But in 2017, according to Statistica, the inflation rate in the United States was just around 2.65%. Now, what is inflation and why does it matter? Inflation is the general increase in prices and the fall of purchasing power. But that sounds like a bunch of economic mumbo jumbo, like purchasing power. What in the world is that? Let's put it in some more simplistic terms you might be able to understand. Right now, if I go to my local convenience store, the price of a pack of chewing gum that I did my research, and I won't underline any brands, but the price was a range from $2.25 to $2.99. But just to be really safe, let's just say the price of a pack of gum is $2, depending on where you are. I live in Chicago. We have a ton of taxes, sugar tax and sweet tax, everything. So let's just say it's $2. Now, currently, full disclosure, I am 27 years old. But I remember about 10 years ago, that a pack of gum was less than 50 cents. Now, leave quality and brand aside. I'm sure I'm looking at, a discount gum. I'm not talking about probably a convenience store. I'm getting it probably somewhere at a whole box store or a wholesale store, so getting it pretty cheap. But if you leave quality and brand aside, that is a 400% increase in 17 years. Now, let me ask you this. Has my $1, if I have $1 in my pocket, has it become 400% more powerful? I'd say to you quite the opposite. For you see, a single dollar could have purchased 4 packs of gum 10 years ago, whereas today it can purchase less than half a pack of gum. Therefore, my purchasing power of that single dollar has gone down, and the price of the things that I want, the price of gum, has gone up. Now, why does that matter to you? And how in the world does the price of gum impact investing? Let's talk about investing. Investments are a game of risk. Risk is a requirement for reward, and most things have risk attached. The definition of risk is a situation involving exposure to danger. When we are investing or even using a savings account at a bank, we are inherently risking money. That might confuse you. You might say, my savings account is not a risk. It's a savings account. I know how much I'm going to get afterwards. You might not believe me. But why do you think that the bank is willing to offer you that little thing called interest? You are making a risk assessment, saying to yourself, I do not need this $1,000, and I'm going to save this $1,000 for the future. And the bank is going to reward me with 1.25% interest for putting my money with them. And you think to yourself, God, I am smart. Next year, I'm going to have 1.25% more interest, more money, and I didn't even work for it. Now, we're going to discuss what interest is in the future and how to use it to your advantage. But for now, it is the rate at which the bank pays you for borrowing your money for a year. Now, remember what I said a little bit earlier about money and how I said your money is always losing value? That little thing called inflation. Over a year, if the national inflation rate is in the United States is just around 2.65%, remember that statistic from Statistica, let's think of that as a negative 2.65% because it is taking away your money's purchasing power. Now, what was that bank offering you? The interest rate the bank was offering you was a positive 1.25%, and the inflation rate is a negative 2.65%. Do you see the problem here? The math doesn't really work out. Now, I admit that the risk of putting your money with a bank is extremely low. The likelihood that any bank is unable to pay you that interest and return you your $1,000 at the end of the year is highly unlikely. But what I am trying to get across here is that putting your money in a savings account at the bank that offers you 1.25% interest is kind of unacceptable. And you say, come on, Ken, my family's invested for years. That is exactly what, we've always done. Of course we're going to invest in the bank. That makes perfect sense. How else are we going to get any money? Let me say, because factually, with that disparity, 2.65% inflation rate and 1.25% interest, you are factually losing money. Confusing, right? You put your $1,000 in the bank. They give you 1.25% interest. You walk away with $1,012.50 after the bank pays you your interest rate of 1.25% next year. But the fact is, the real value of your $1,000 after inflation of 2.65% is applied is less than $1,000. Your real value of that money is $985.42 next year. You might hear on CNN or on any of the big financial news stations, they say, after adjustment for inflation. That's what this means. This means after inflation is applied, here's how much that money is really valued at. Now, later today, I'm going to post a blog post that will explain all this math, and we'll link to that in the comments below. But I just want you to understand how inflation is applied to your money that you've invested. And if you look at this as a thought experiment, you will actually walk away with less value at the end whenever you actually get that return on that interest rate. Now, doesn't that sound a little crazy? You've probably been trained your entire life, save money, save money, save money, put it in the bank, they offer you an interest rate, you're happy with that, it's the best interest rate possible, and that's what you do. But this brings us full circle to the theme of the month of February 2018, which is, why do we invest? On KenOnInvesting, we will discuss a number of reasons, from tax benefits to the benefits of having others work for you, which is what stock is. You're relying on a company that's going to work for you to make more money. But we're really going to hone in on the fact that you need some way to battle the invisible leech that sucks the tiniest value out of every dollar you have every single day. And that leech is called inflation. But instead of this being a doomsday conversation, let's look at a very tangible inflation that may be helping you right now. Housing prices. The United States has proven by the 2008 financial crisis that the entire economy is built on a firm bedrock of real estate, which is just a fancy word for physical land. As a millennial myself, looking at my personal expenses, there is a gnawing internal conversation always going on that says, Ken, you spend so much money every month on rent. And it doesn't really do anything for you. That money is kind of going into a black pit. You don't get anything for that money other than a place to live, which is obviously nice. But, as a millennial and, coming up on 30 very soon, Ken, don't you think you should buy a home? For if I were to buy a home, I could possibly benefit from inflation. Now wait, Ken, hold on. That's not fair. You just said inflation is slowly eating my money. Well, yes, I did. But I also want to get across that the slow and steady increase of real estate or housing prices is also a form of inflation. I believe that we need a full episode to discuss the investment risk and opportunity of a home or any type of property for that matter. But when we're talking about inflation theory, it benefits property owners. Now let's think logically, because a lot of investment conversations really should come back to logic. It shouldn't come back to, I have proprietary data and I know more than you. It should come back to logic. And as the world makes more humans, as our population grows, there is a finite amount of space we can live on, meaning there are only so many miles. The United States is only so large. The world is only so large. As we add more humans, there's only so much space we can live in. Therefore, inherently, real estate becomes more valuable. Now, I do want to make a caveat here that, of course, when Elon Musk colonizes Mars, we will have a complete change and we'll have lots more real estate. But until Elon Musk colonizes Mars, we are stuck with a fixed amount of land for our 7.45 billion people to live on. So, purchasing a home can benefit you. If you live in that home, and the value of that home increases over time. Now, inflation isn't all bad, but it is ever present. Now, ever present here means something that is always right there with you and is never going away. Much like taxes, which happens to be our next episode. You can tune in at 9 a.m. Central tomorrow morning for a discussion on why investment income is much more attractive than other kinds of income in the United States from a taxation perspective. Now, back to the question of why do we invest? Other than the fact that inflation is always at war with our bank account, there are some other benefits too. We invest money because by risking our current money on a stock, a bond, a piece of real estate, or in the case of MinnowTank, which is the company that I own, on equity in a startup, we have the opportunity to make a positive return on investments, meaning we can come away with more money than we originally invested in the future, which is kind of the purpose of investing, right? I'm going to give you $1,000, and in the future, you're going to give me back more than $1,000, and I am happy. And why do we invest? Let's hone right back in that. Because inflation is always eating away at our money. And as a general rule, we invest to defeat inflation. Our money has to increase at a value of 3% on an average annual basis to beat inflation. Now I ask you, did what I say just make sense? Do you have any questions about inflation or how that may affect your, maybe, kind of like a virus, how it might affect your investments? This is the point of the show where I open it up for questions. Now, I have two other computers in front of me. I am checking our Facebook Live comments. I'm checking our YouTube Live comments. Thank you, Racer360, for helping us with our audio. That was a big mess, and that was expected for our very first episode. We also have Twitter, so if you type in hashtag MinnowTank, we check those tweets to see if you guys have any questions. But as this is our first episode, we're not expecting too many questions. But if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them now so I can answer them live. Another thing that we're looking for is I'm currently looking for other questions about investing in general. So what kind of questions do you have? Do you want to know what a stock is? Do you want to understand value of a stock? For example, why does a stock price go up and down? Great question. I'd be happy to make an episode on anything the community asks. We just need to know what are the questions that you have. And the beautiful thing here is you can ask those questions anonymously, and we're more than happy to answer them. So, as I mentioned before, after working at Merrill Lynch, I have a wealth of knowledge about money and investing. But I don't know what you don't know. So, how can I help you? What do you want to learn? If you're watching now on YouTube, please feel free to submit any questions in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer them in the future episodes. Now, I'm checking over my multiple feeds. It doesn't seem like we have any questions coming through on Twitter. The YouTube questions are kind of empty, and the Facebook Live questions are also empty this round. So, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today, and please join me tomorrow morning on our next episode of KenOnInvesting that airs every single weekday at 9 a.m. Central. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to catch more episodes of KenOnInvesting. MinnowTank's live stream pitch is also on every Tuesday morning, where you can see early stage tech startups pitching hundreds of angel investors that are attached to the MinnowTank network. And we even have a segment called Office Hours. And that segment is where we invite thought leaders in the community to share their wisdom about specific industry knowledge that they have to the entire MinnowTank network. So, I want to say thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and check my comments one last time. It seems like we don't have any comments. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live on YouTube. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live on Facebook. And I look forward to hearing your questions in the future, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks again, guys. Bye. All right, guys, we actually did have one question from Racer360. While we're still live, I'm going to go ahead and answer that. So the question from Racer360 is, when you're looking at potentially investing in a startup, do you like to see partners using vesting style of equity? or is that a red flag? So let's go ahead and dig into what that means. So vesting style of equity means, for example, I own Minotank, my company, and let's say that I bring on a new partner. For example, I bring on a chief operating officer, and since we're an early stage tech startup, we don't have that much money to pay someone probably what they want to make. They probably want to make, let's say, more than $100,000 a year because they're going to be in charge of managing a lot of staff and running a lot of people. But the fact is, I just don't have that much money yet. I'm an early stage tech startup. Maybe we made $100,000 the whole year. We obviously can't afford to pay someone that much money. So to repeat Racer360's question, which was, when you are looking at potentially investing in a startup, do you like to see partners using a vesting style of equity? Hopefully, I'm going to give you a good answer for that, which is yes, I would say so. As a startup founder myself, and as someone who appraises a lot of early stage tech startup deals to come onto Minotank, the answer is yes. As an early stage tech startup, you do not often have revenue. You don't have enough revenue to pay everyone what they want to be paid to keep them on, so you have to use equity. And one of the best ways to get people to have skin in the game or to be invested, so many puns this morning, have someone be invested is to use that vesting style. So for example, I am hiring on a COO and I say, listen, awesome, Alex, you are awesome COO, you've ran other big companies, but I can't pay you what you want, but I can pay you in equity. I can pay you a base salary, and I will give you 5% over the next 2 years. Why is this good? This incentivizes Alex to say, okay, I'm going to be an owner in this company. I'll get a really tiny salary. I'll basically have to live off my savings, and I'll have to live really cheap. I got to eat ramen every day. But what I do get is over 2 years, I receive 5%. Or every year, I'm going to be paid 2.5% of this company until at the end I am vested, meaning I receive all of that equity, that percentage of that company as compensation because that company cannot currently afford me. So my answer to you, Racer360, is this is not a red flag at all. I'd love to know what your experience is and how you believe that's a red flag because it's often what is required. When you look at early stage tech startups, a lot of them grow extremely fast. You might see a company that starts in 2018, and by 2020, they have 50 employees. This is a unique, amazing aspect of tech companies because we have unlimited scale. Technology can go as fast as you want it to, and oftentimes revenue is a slowing factor. When you're looking as an investor at a company, having people who have skin in the game, who have equity, who have either put in their own money or who have equity in the company, logically, they're going to work much harder at that company. They're going to work much harder to earn more of that company and make that company inherently more valuable. So just to dig into that a little more, Racer360, and I hope I'm answering your question. I'm going to type to you now, did I answer your question? I'm hoping so. But whenever you're looking at a company, you want to see other founders, the people who are running the company who have equity, because that means that as that company grows in value, so will their investment and their time will grow in value. So please think of it in that range. So again, the question was, when you are looking at potentially investing in a startup, do you like to see partners using a vesting style of equity, or is it a red flag? And Racer360 just responded to me and said, you got it. I don't see any red flags, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something that I didn't think of. Racer360, we invite you to ask any more questions you want. Today's episode was really based around inflation, but we're more than happy to answer any kind of investment questions you might have. And if you want to learn a little bit more about equity and investing, tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time for our Course Align pitch. We have an awesome pitch coming up, and every Tuesday morning we invite early stage tech startups who are looking to raise capital, and you're welcome to ask any questions to them as well. We're 100% live when we have them on. So I'm going to check. Thank you very much, Racer360, for your questions. Racer360 in the future, we'd love to know where you're at, where you're asking these questions from. But without any further ado, I think that's great for our very first episode of Minotank. And thank you guys very much for tuning in. I will see you next time.